This meeting shall come, this public meeting shall come to order at 6 p.m. please. This is a public hearing. Actually, it's 6:03. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Adams. Here. Jones. Here. Sephardi.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Brownlee.
Here.
Turjansky.
Here.
Agee. Here. Albers.
Elders. This public meeting is being called according to Chapter 208 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Maple Heights. And the public hearing is to permit the public to speak in opposition or in favor of the 2015 tax budget. I'm assuming everybody has one. Only comments directed to the tax budget would be heard. Residents of the city may speak up to 8 minutes.
Ordinance number 2014-55, an ordinance adopting the 2015 tax budget of the City of Maple Heights and declaring an emergency.
Are there any proponents to the ordinance? Are there any proponents to the ordinance? Are there any proponents to the ordinance? Are there any opponents to the ordinance? Are there any opponents to the ordinance? Last time, are there any opponents to the ordinance? That's it. The public hearing is closed at 6:04.
Thank you. I have a question regarding the agenda.
We're not in the meeting yet. Can you hold that for just a few minutes, please? The special meeting of council is called to order at 6:05. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Adams.
Here.
Jones. Here. Sephardi.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Brownlee.
Here.
Turjansky.
Here.
Agee. Here. Albers.
Here. May I have a motion to suspend the regular council meeting agenda and proceed with only the legislation? A second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Madam Chair, will you entertain discussion, Madam Chair?
Yeah, if you need to.
What exactly are we voting on at the moment? Because I have two different agendas in front of me here. I have the one that was given to us July 1st, and I have the one that was given to us today.
That's for tomorrow. That revision is for tomorrow only.
So this one's for tomorrow?
Correct.
Okay.
And it has the contracts for the correction officers because that was added. So I had to give another notice within 24 hours.
So this motion for suspending the rules for is what again?
To just go on with the legislation, we have several pieces of legislation that are pending.
No
They're
minutes.
on third reading, so we are not having committee reports. It's a special council meeting, so the agenda is a little different.
Right. So this is motion even necessary. We've already set our agenda. Why are we suspending an agenda we've not? That doesn't govern this meeting.
It's just a procedure. Would you call the roll, please?
Adams.
Yes.
Jones. Yes. Sephardi.
Present.
Jackson.
Yes.
Brownlee.
No.
Turjansky.
Yes.
Agee. Present. Motion passed.
Moving on to the legislation, please.
Resolution number 2014-46, a resolution amending resolution number 2013-55, and directing the finance director to transfer all existing and future funds assessed and collected for the garbage and rubbish collections in the city of Maple Heights from the Solid Waste Collection Fund to the General Fund in the city of Maple Heights and declaring an emergency.
This resolution is on its third reading. Is there any discussion or amendments at this point?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Jackson?
in listening to our finance director and our attorney, the city attorney, talk about this fund on what this money is actually sitting in, on, I guess, what kind of a fund it is in, and if it was, for accounting purposes, legal to move this money from an assessment account into the general fund account. I think is what I'm going to be basing my decision on, and if I was told something different, I would be voting different. So I just would like to make that noted for the record. That's what I'm going to base this this decision on. I think because the city is so financially strapped that perchance if we do have a surplus in the solid waste collection fund, that I think the city does need to be able to then utilize that money for something other than, again, if that's ethically and accounting-wise.
Okay. May I have a motion for adoption?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Comment. Concerning this, and I guess really the following piece of legislation, to Mr. Jackson's points, they were applicable. But as I see the trash fund, Fund 251 right now, it's not a tax, that we're not collecting this through a tax, we're collecting it through a special assessment, and that special assessment is used, as any other fee is, to pay for something in particular. I've already seen that there's more than enough money to pay for the trash collection as residents have been receiving it, yet they aren't receiving that amount of service any longer. And more than that, we've already neglected to pay the bills that we owe Waste Management, and we are in arrears on a payment plan or whatever you want to call it. So it's not as though this is, those aren't good accounting principles, so I don't think this is about accounting principles. But furthermore, for our residents, they are expecting us to take that money, and I as a resident am as well, expecting us to take that money that's collected for trash and to pay only trash bills with that money. I think that's very straightforward. It should be simple for us to see that. But furthermore, we keep talking about surpluses. There's already something in our codified ordinances to deal with surplus. There should be no surpluses in the solid waste fund. If there is, we simply cut a break the following year to our residents, because this money is only for trash. It's not something that we should be looking at surplus and then transferring it out and using it, spending it on something else. So therefore, I believe that we need to keep this money earmarked for a particular thing by keeping it in a special fund. If there is known to be some kind of issue with the state auditor's office with the legality of this fund, then that can be checked. That's a totally separate issue, though. So we cannot take this money that ourselves and our residents have paid for trash and transfer it to something else. That, in my mind, is completely out of bounds.
Thank you. May I have a motion for adoption, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion from council?
Madam Chair, would you allow either the mayor or Ms. Crowell to speak to the discussion that happened? It's my understanding, if I'm going to be repeating this correctly, the reason for the move of the funds is that if it's not moved, we are going to need to loan the fund additional money that's going to be not, I'm trying to also ask for it. Can you talk to that point? Give us an example where the money would have to be moved to the garbage fund if we don't do this. And it's going to be a shortage for us then in the long run because that money's going to be sitting there. Am I not understanding this right?
Well, excuse me, good evening. In most instances, first of all, I checked with several suburbs, and my experience is that this is a general operating operation, okay? It's not, I mean, it's restricted here by council. It's not restricted by law, other than council restricted the funds. So if you check with other suburbs, it goes into the general fund, as does other collection for fees, like the building permits and all of those are not set aside. And they are, you know, to help offset the building fund. In terms of the general fund has to absorb any deficits or monies that do not come in. These dollars come in twice a year. They come in tax collection in March and September. So during that time, someone has to pay those bills. I mean, whether, you know, it's loaned to the fund or otherwise. So, if, like right now, we don't have enough funds there to cover the current operations. They come regular, you know, in arrears. They will come, but they come in arrears. So it's the suggestion that we just wait till we get the money and pay, which means it'll be way behind. Or do we continue to do what we're doing, pay the bills, and it's really being charged or coming out of funds from the general fund and other operations. So, you know, when you set up special revenues, and we've had this discussion several times, special revenues, first of all, need to be approved by the state auditor. And secondly, special revenues are restricted by the donor, by time, you know, and then of course by purpose. So, you know, there is no restriction other than what the council is putting on there, because it's just operating funds. You know, you can use it for the general fund. And technically, as we speak often to accounting principles, for those that's averse in that term, when monies have been spent for grants or anything else, when it's reimbursed, you can use it for what you want to because you've already put the money out. So when it comes back, you can use it. And that's something you can check according to general accounting principles. You can check that for those that's interested. So therefore, if we're putting the money out, when the reimbursement comes back, the money belongs to the city anyway. It's like a payback. So to keep it out of deficit, as long as it sits in a special revenue fund, it's sort of hanging out under scrutiny by the auditors and other folk. So the minute it runs into deficit, as you have the others for the fiscal watch, you know, is under that umbrella. So by putting it in the general fund, because it is a basic operation of the city, I mean, there's nothing special about collecting trash other than, you know, the body decided to do that. So that's your prerogative, but like I say, the general fund in essence has to advance funds there, and that should be approved by council too. I mean, when you're making loans to other funds, it should come through legislation. And then when the money comes in, then the council approves for the money to be repaid to the general fund. So, you know, it just, I mean, that's the way it should be done, as we're going to follow GAP or general sector accounting principles. So.
Could you also clarify, Irene, Mr. Jackson had a comment about the legality, and I do believe we've been over this, and you had sent some information out, but would you clarify one more time?
Well, the legality is, like I say, imposed by this body. I mean, for example, if you set it up as a special fund, supposedly with the approval of the auditor of state. Now, you know, everybody does not follow rules, we know that, but since we're always talking about following the rules, and in accordance with GAP, and in accordance with charter and ordinances and all of this, then that's legal, that you should have approval before you open, and the auditor can tell you that.
Thank you.
Now, the fact that you don't have it, you know, that's another issue.
Thank you. Are there any further discussions before we call the roll?
Madam President,
Alex?
my word goes back to what I said before. We had a deficit. We owed waste management a lot of money. Fire, police, and garbage to me is the main thing that people in the city worry about and can see. We're just lucky Waste Management made an agreement with the city. Because I don't know what would have happened if they didn't. So, if this money went into the general fund and it happened again, we're right back, and we might not get a second chance. So I can't understand how we got the deficit that we did with waste management, knowing it's such an important position. Where did that money go? How did it slip by us that we was in such a deficit? How did it get by us?
Alex, I do believe that that was actually towards the end of last year. I don't believe that Irene had anything to do with it.
No, she went through the books, she must say.
A simple explanation, yes.
If I may, first of all, we're not behind in our payments to waste management. We are current. Okay, so we need to clear that up. We are current. We're current in our bills in terms of the agreements that we have with them. And secondly, in terms, it goes back to what I said, the money comes in after the fact. I mean, for example, we'll be getting money in September for the past 6 months. So, like I say, during these 6 months, someone has to pay the bill. If the general fund did not have the money, then it's very easy for it to go into delinquency, to get behind. Because that's what it takes, someone has to pay the bill. So when the money comes in and after the fact, 6 months later, because we're always collecting for the prior tax year. So when we get money in this year, it's really for tax year 13. It's not for tax year 14. So that's why I'm saying it's really a moot issue, because the bill, if it is paid on time, then it has to come from somewhere. And then when the money comes in, it replaces that. And so if the money's not there, you can't make the advance payment.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Would I, a brief, other comments?
Thank you.
Would you just wait one moment if there's anyone else that would like to make a comment before you do your second one? Anyone else? Go ahead quickly, please.
Yes, we keep talking about a deficit. That's simply a figment of our imagination. There's no deficit in Fund 251. If you happen to have the statement of cash position that was given to us by the finance director last month, says that Fund 251 started the year with $553,000 in it. It started the year, January 1st, with $553,000. Okay, so now, whenever we look at the revenue that we projected to bring in from that Ms. Cole provided to us, she estimated we would bring in $1.5 million for this year through the property tax assessment for trash. That makes a total of $2 million available to be spent this year. Does anyone remember how much our contract was with Waste Management? It was only 1.3 something. So we should end the year, even if we had kept the recycling, with over $600,000 in the bank in this fund. This is all figment of our imagination. There's no deficit in this fund. You simply look at the numbers. It's easy to see. And I don't know that we need to go any farther than that. There should be plenty of money in this fund. This is where negative fund balances comes into play. This money was spent elsewhere through negative fund balances. If we have the general fund over here with 1.3 million behind, and we have this fund with 500,000 above, guess where that $500,000 went? It went into that negative. So this money was spent somewhere else. And I think us just throwing this in so you can't see that anymore is foolishness for us as a body, for accounting, and also for our residents, because they want to be able to see, clear as day, this is how much was spent, this is how much came in, they want to see the numbers set aside separately. So I would say that we need not listen to these phantoms of deficits and all that. We can simply say, this money's brought in for a particular reason, it's put in a particular fund, and it's spent on particular things, and we should keep it the way that it is.
Thank you for your opinion. I think everybody else has heard the discussion, and we can continue to call the vote for adoption, yea or nay.
Adams.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Safrati.
No.
Jackson.
Yes.
Brownlee.
No.
Turjansky.
Yes.
Agee.
No.
We have 4 yes, 3 no. That would mean it would take effect, I believe, in 30 days.
Okay, moving on.
Resolution number 2014-47, a resolution amending resolution number 2013-55 regarding the special fund known as the Solid Waste Collection Fund, number 251, specifying that payments from this fund be designated only for the payment of garbage and rubbish collections in the city of Maple Heights, and declaring an emergency.
This resolution is also on its third reading. May I have a motion for adoption, please?
So moved. Second.
Is there any further discussion?
Madam President,
Yes.
could we have clarification from the law director on the previous ordinance on when it takes effect?
Third
Okay.
reading.
Third reading, 4 yes votes, 3 no votes.
Yeah, for emergency to apply, you would need 5. And so emergency doesn't apply, it takes effect in 30 days.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No further discussion. Call the roll, please.
Adams.
Yes.
Jones.
No.
Safrati.
Yes.
Jackson.
No.
Brownlee.
Yes.
Turjansky.
So,
Agee.
Yes.
Madam Chair.
I think you need a roll.
These are
Incoming call from
conflicting ordinances, if I can
216A.
speak, I'm sorry, but it's the flip
Claire.
side of
Blair, I'd like to just clarify, would you please, perhaps it wasn't understood?
Madam Chair, the vote count was?
Vote count to leave it in the fund was 4 yes, 3 no.
Can't do that.
That would pass, takes effect in 30 days, supersedes previous ordinance. Because it was passed after the previous number 46. Madam Chair,
Yes.
someone there had
Oh, yeah.
2 different opinions that were voted. I didn't do a roll call. Roll call might be appropriate to clarify that vote. Because somebody had to vote to put it into the general fund, and they also voted to put it into a separate fund. That would
New
be
voicemail.
counterintuitive.
who's that, Alex?
Well,
Don't you know how to vote?
You can move for reconsideration.
Yes.
Madam Chair, could I address the law?
To Blair? Yes.
These are 2 separate issues.
Actually, they're the same issue as what to do with the
Ask
senior
for
money.
reconsider on
And you can't put the money into a separate fund and put it into the general
At the
fund.
same time. Right.
So if you vote for one, you'd have to turn down the other in order to be
I
considered.
ask for reconsider.
Put in the- okay.
Did that answer your
Who
question?
seconded?
Yes.
To a degree, yes, but then it shouldn't have showed up here twice. If it's the same thing. And if it's not the same thing, then each vote stands on its own. If it is the same thing, then it should have been some kind of a consolidated into one.
We have a motion on the floor right now. Alex has asked to reconsider, and Tony seconded it. Is there any discussion, please? Anthony, did you have a comment?
1 second, Madam Chair, point of clarification. What are you moving to reconsider?
reconsider my vote on 2014-47. I voted yes. I'd like to reconsider my vote.
And Madam Chair, to clarify, it would be a vote to have the entirety of council recast their votes on reconsideration after second
Okay.
round. And
Is there
it
any other-
requires a majority yay to reconsider.
For the reconsider of the vote, there needs to be a clarification. This ordinance pays the trash fund first. Then anything after that, that's still in the fund, can be moved to the general fund. It just has to be a resolution before council for approval. That's it. That's all that ordinance is doing. Pay the trash first, anything extra, council approval to pay the other bills. Nobody's stopping that, okay? There's no counting gimmicks here. It's $1.5 million that residents pay, and somehow we got into a deficit. I know how it happened, but we got into a deficit with this fund. This is the way it was set up. This is the way it was set up 10 years ago. Previously, by prior councils, just for this reason, because there was not any trust. This pays the trash bill first. Anything extra goes into the general. Solidifies what residents pay for. It pays the bill first. I'm sorry, but I mean, it's clear. I mean, I understand the accounting jargon that was in the previous ordinance, but I mean, if you want to throw everything into the general fund and then have the trust of everything getting paid, fine, go ahead. But I have an issue with that.
Go ahead. Here, Tony.
Councilman, I think you contradicted yourself, because if you're saying that we need to keep this in the fund, and if you know how we ended up coming up with a deficit, please explain that, so we're all enlightened. Because if the element of trust is there, then I think it just went out the door, because obviously we came into a deficit.
It was very clear, Madam Chair, if I could speak,
Go
that
ahead.
the previous finance director stated to council that he was using the trash money to pay other bills. Whether that was legal or not, I don't know. It doesn't matter because it's in the past. We cannot change it.
Okay, unfortunately, we do have a motion on the floor, and we need to vote. Yea or nay, please. Mr. Jackson?
Madam Chair, you ending the discussion, or are we still
No,
discussing?
I'm just reminding you that we have a motion on the floor.
Okay. I'd like to get some clarification from Ms. Crowell and from our attorney. Is it true what Councilman Seferati just said, that when it goes into the trash fund, that any money over and above was due waste management goes into the general fund?
It's in the new ordinance, right?
It's in the new ordinance, yes.
It has to be a resolution before council to move that money into the general
I
fund.
think that's Irene has also mentioned that.
Yeah, we're not telling anybody how to spend it or anything. We're saying, hey, there's 300, 500,000 extra. We bring it before council, and if council approves the moving, then that's fine.
Can we go
Madam Chair,
back?
if I could just clarify just one thing for Mr. Jackson. My job is just to clarify, as I understand the law and how the law would apply. Generally, in my experience is pushing 30 years, when I deal with special funds, I'm used to it in the context of capital improvements, where you set aside certain monies to make certain improvements in your community. The building of a water tower, a new building, an improvement to a building, an expansion of a building. I'm used to it in capital improvements. I'm not used to special funds in operating expenses. And clearly paying a trash bill would be a general operating expense. My experience with these things is perhaps not as in-depth as our finance director, but I have had to go seek court orders as well as solicit the state auditor's permission to release funds for expenditure from special funds. So they have separate rules. General GAAP principles for GAAP accounting has me used to the line item issue, and this body would approve line items. So when you appropriate funds to a certain line item, that goes into a line item. Pick whatever line you want, line number 721. That can't be moved off line 721 without movement authorized by this council and my consideration. So if you wanted to take that and move into another line item in order to pay some other bill, I think it has to come here and they have to adjust the appropriations. And I'm used to quarterly review of the appropriations budget from a finance director to come in and say, hey, we're a little short in this area and we have excess in this area, so we can talk about juggling that money around. So that's my common experience. I do not want to take anything away from the finance director if she wants to give further clarification. But I still think that this council, regardless of which one they pass here, they have the ability to review expenditures from that line item. They have the ability to authorize expenditures from that line item. And the encumbrance on the special fund would be the involvement of the state auditor's office and perhaps seeking a court order to authorize those expenditures, which if you're paying it biannually, that's 2 trips to the court, that's 2 trips downstate. So I think the concept is clear from all of council. They want to pay the garbage bill. I trust that message has been received.
Okay, this is the motion to reconsider the vote for resolution number 2014-47. Simple majority will pass. Adams. Jones.
No.
Sabrati. Jackson.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Excuse me, there's a vote on the floor.
I understand.
And a motion?
I'm here to.
But you're commenting on a motion that we're voting on right now. Just because it doesn't go with the administration's goal or whatever, we're in the middle of a vote.
My job is to clarify, to make sure everybody
They wouldn't let
understands
me
what's
do
there.
it.
I'm
It
going to
doesn't
clarify
matter.
this.
We're in the middle of a
A
vote.
yea
It's a
vote
procedure.
authorizes reconsideration. A nay vote says that the previous vote will stand. That's the clarification.
Brownlee.
No.
Turjansky.
Yes.
AG. No. So the vote stands on the previous one.